Hi, this is John here, doing a little video on doing a pool to pond conversion. This will be the first video of several that I'm going to be doing. So yeah, I bought this house about a year ago. It's a beautiful house, had a nice pool, but I don't use the pool. It cost me about $150 a month to maintain this thing. Although this thing was down about 18 inches from where it's at, it's actually filled back up. It's actually overfilled right now. And this is all 100% rainwater that's filled it back up. This over here was totally empty. And that's 100% rainwater right there. So that's at least 2 feet deep at the bottom there. So the spa area. This is going to be a nice bog right here, I think. It's going to make a nice for like growing plants and kind of in a marshy kind of bog kind of. And then this will be our basic water structure area right here. And this will be just for plants, well, other kind of plants, floating plants, and then more aquatic plants. Not so much the marsh type plants, but like underwater plants and then floating plants on top. And then probably some fish and possibly a couple sea turtles. I'm going to see, and I'm investigating that, see if we can do something about that. But anyway, this is where we're at right now. So this is April 1st. We turned the pump off back in September 13th, I think it was. It's the last time I put chlorine and all the other chemical crap into it. So I figured that's dissipated a couple weeks after, and then so it's probably had about 6 months of just being stable, nothing being done to it whatsoever. So this is what happens 6 months later. We've also had a lot of rain, so this thing was, like I mentioned before, this thing was down to where that step is at. It's actually about 18, maybe even 20 inches down from where it's at now. So all of that's been refilled just from rainwater. So there's a significant proportion of rainwater to what was in there before, which is city water, and then chemicals. But all that chemical stuff should be gone. Well, we're going to be testing the water. That's one of the first things we're going to do. We're going to test the water right now to see what our baseline is. And there appears to be some sort of life in here. I don't know if you can see that. There's little creatures swimming around in here. I don't know what that is. I don't know if those are dragonflies or something, baby. There's some other kinds of gnats. There's like little creatures swimming in the water. So that's a good sign. It must be safe, because if it was toxic, if it had a bunch of chlorine and a bunch of other stuff in it, none of this stuff would be alive. It'd be all dead. But so that's a good first sign, I think. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So here's the test kit that I purchased just specifically for this project. It's a pond test kit, 50 strips. And so it tests for various metrics here. So nitrate, general hardness, chlorine, total alkalinity, carbonate, and pH. So pH should be 7. That's neutral. Anything less than that's acidic, and anything more than that's more alkaline. Now this pool has had a history when I was maintaining it, or when it was a pool. Sorry, it's now going to be a pond. But in the past, as a pool, it would always have a ridiculously high amount of pH or alkalinity. So these numbers would be way up here, and I would have to put stuff in there, chemicals, a whole bunch of this stuff. Every 10 days or so, I'd have to put in half a gallon of the muriatic acid, I think it's called, or some pH down powder stuff. You just have to keep bombing it with that. And then the chlorine would generally, when you add the chlorine, it usually, once it's exposed to sunlight, it pretty much dissipates on its own. It becomes almost ineffective after like 24 hours of being in the sun. It's pretty much vaporizes. So that goes away pretty quickly. But still, you still have to pour that crap into this thing. And I never felt very good about pouring all those chemicals in here and then swimming in it afterwards. It doesn't make any sense to me. At the very least, I would recommend, if you do want to have a pool, keep it a natural pool and just have some sort of hybrid of what I'm going to do compared to like a regular pool, which basically you would have a bog filter up there, have a whole bunch of plants in a bog setting, and then you run your pump, and then basically the plants will filter the water, put it back out, and you can basically filter it that way. without all the chemical crap. Also, general hardness, I think that's something, there's a lot of calcium, magnesium. That's what general hardness means basically in the water here, just in the city water. So I would suspect that this is still probably going to have that unless it somehow vaporizes. I don't think it does. But anyway, we're going to find out. And nitrite, we want that to be as low as possible. It's not good. And nitrate, I believe that comes from decaying animals or feces or decaying plants. All produce that's the nitrates, which we want to keep that down. But if we have plants, the plants eat that. And then the animals and then the decaying leaves and everything produce more of it. So ideally we want to have something that's in balance where we just don't have to do anything to it. We can just let everything kind of have our tiny little ecosystem here of having plants feeding the fish, and then the fish feeds the plants. And then basically the waters are going to be 100% rainwater. It's going to be seasonal because we live in a dry climate here, Southern California. It gets to be pretty desert-like in the summer, but in the winter we get some nice rainfall, so it fills back up. So I'm expecting this thing to drop maybe a foot or maybe 18 inches, but that's okay because it's 4 or 5 feet deep, so it's not going to be a problem if it drops a foot or so. So by the end of the summer, it should be interesting to see. Actually, I'm guessing a lot of this stuff. We'll have to see what happens. But anyway, the first thing we want to do is we want to open this thing up and test our water to see where we're at. So let's go ahead and do that right now. That's how it comes out of the container. So I guess everything's at 0. And then you're supposed to just dip it in here like so for 2 seconds. That's about 2. So it'll be interesting to see what we have here. This is the very first time I've done this. Oh yeah, here we go. As I suspected, it's ridiculously high in pH again. Yeah, I don't know what it is with this, I don't know what it is. I'm going to have to do some research. Well, that's why we're doing this. That's why this is video number 1 here. So we're going to see what we have and then make some adjustments as necessary. So that's our initial reading here. So here's the plants we're going to be adding to here today. This is just a starter sampler kit here. These are all purchased at a local water gardening store. Fortunately, I live only about 6 miles away from one, so it's fortunate. I've also ordered a whole bunch of stuff on Amazon. So it's coming in. We're going to be putting in about 10 different kind of plants. Also some lilies. I'm going to be doing the lilies from seed. So it's going to be interesting to see how that turns out. But this is what we got right now. So we've got 2 water hyacinths. These are excellent oxygenators, and they're also excellent at filtering the water out. Probably clean some of this up, kind of take some of the murk out of it, kind of just make it a more habitable water area for plants, for other plants, and then also for fish and other aquatic sea life here. So that's what we're starting with. We're starting focusing on that right now. So we got 2 of those right here. And these are floaters. All of these are floaters. So it's nothing to do. We just toss them in and we're basically done. So that's going to be nice and simple. Can't be any more simple than that. And then we have some water lettuce. We have 2 of those right here. And these 2, we just throw them in there. They basically do the same thing. They clean up the water, make it more habitable, just take out some of the toxics that are in there. This one doesn't have as much of a root system, unfortunately. I think something broke off here during transit. That's unfortunate. Looks like that root right there broke off. But it's my understanding that these are incredibly fast growers. That's why we didn't buy too many of them. I only bought 2 of each. And they're supposed to multiply like crazy. And it's only April. Still spring here. So we have all the summer ahead of us. All spring and summer ahead of us. So these things should multiply like crazy. So we want to basically get this thing about 30% coverage. And then this will be a bog area right here. So this would be 100% coverage pretty much, or 90%. Kind of dirt and plants, heavy plants, big tall plants right there. And then this would all be water, floating stuff underwater, and then fish and turtles and stuff like that. And then we've got some duckweed right here. So this stuff is kind of interesting. So it's supposed to be the fastest growing stuff, according to the guy I talked to, and also doing some research online. This stuff grows incredibly fast. So even though we just have a handful of it here today, that's all we're going to need. you throw it in here and it's going to multiply like crazy, and so we're going to have a whole bunch of this stuff in here. So that's should be interesting to see how that turns out. It looks like we're ready to go here. So it's real easy to plant these plants, the easiest plants there are to plant. Basically, this is the procedure here. There they are, planted, done. This is what we have. Everything looks pretty nice. Should be interesting to see what happens. So, the next thing that we've already purchased is some lily lotus seeds. It says mixed bonsai lotus. I didn't catch the bonsai part when I ordered it. So if these are tiny, they may not grow as big as we would like. I mean, I would like them to be full-size lilies and lotus plants. But anyway, this is a cost-effective way to do, extremely cost-effective, because this is like $8 for 30 seeds. They're supposed to have an 80% fertility rate. So if we get about 22 or 23 of these guys, that would be pretty cost-effective for $8. And as far as total cost, $8 for that. The plants were $25, and then another $8 for the test kit. So there they are, basically ready to go. All we have to do is put them in like that. Let these soak for a couple days, just per the instructions. There's no included instructions, but if you go back to Amazon, I bought these on Amazon. If you go back there, they have the instructions there. It tells you what you want to do. So I think basically we just let them sit in water until they germinate, and then you start to plant them into little containers. 80% fertility rate supposedly, so we should have about 22, 23, maybe 24 little lilies and lotus with different types of color flowers. At least that's the promise. But for $8 you can't expect a whole lot, because if you buy lily plants, they're like 30 or 40 bucks a piece if you want to buy one that's already grown. So yeah, very cost effective. So we'll have to see how this turns out. Other than that, I think that's going to do it for this episode. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope you stay with us for the whole series. It should be interesting to see how this pool project transforms into a beautiful pond with lots of life and lots of just a whole lot more interesting than a sterile, cold, chemical-filled pool. So anyway, stick with us.